Good morning, everyone. I'm Constanza Brnčić. I'm a dance artist, and today I will present an artistic research project about embodied archiving practices commissioned by El Grane Fábrica de Creació, Music Museum of Barcelona, and the Institute of Culture of Barcelona. Also, we have the complicity of Gràcia Territori Sonor, because this project is about the personal archive of Víctor Nubla. Víctor Nubla was a musician, poet, and a cultural agitator of Barcelona, and he was founder of Gràcia Territori Sonor. And this project was commissioned by Museum de la Música, who asked me to go into this archive and do an artistic piece out of it. So we started to work with that, and we developed many different methodologies, which I'm going to talk about them now. Okay, so what the main theme that we worked with was the obsolete sound register devices, in particular the underground cassette, which Nubla's archive is a bold example, and also the relationship between archiving and contemporary interdisciplinary artistic practices. So in his article, Body as Archive, Will to Reenact and the Afterlife of Dances, André Lepecki, following Foucault's idea developed in archaeology of knowledge, that the archive is the general system of formation and transformation of statements, proposes that, and I quote, similarly, choreography is also a dynamic system of transmission and of transformation, an archival corporeal system that also turns statements into corporeal events and kinetic things. That is to say, because it is a system of transformation, the archive is in itself a critical point, a singularity.
Excuse me, you need to advance it on this so the audience can see.
Okay. I'm not. Okay, yes. These are some pictures of the process. So I will pass on. So the artistic research project Evanescent Records explored this idea of an embodied archiving, choreography as a reorganization system that transforms and configures new orders of elements, and therefore creates other statements, problematizing logics and narratives contained in any archive. It also works with the hypothesis that Victoria Pérez Royo and José Antonio Sánchez proposed regarding artistic research. And I quote, "The artistic experience is temporal. It is not static but dynamic. It is not simultaneous but processual. Research, to be coherent with experience and practice, is therefore thought of as research into the process and never into a closed object. In other terms, the field of artistic research is the process of creation." This is the hypothesis this project is based on. So in Evanescent Records, we can see other images here, an interdisciplinary group of artists and researchers, such as the musician Alfredo Costa Monteiro, dancers and choreographers Blanca Tolsa and myself, photographer and video artist Tristan Pérez Martín, and art historian Bárbara Raubert, explored the idea of the fragility of memory, the evanescence of devices and systems of capture and recall of the past. capture of image, sound, discourse, and the body and its life, its kinetic nature as the main memory device and evanescent recording surface itself. To explore the personal archive of musician Victor Nubla, Evanescent Records deploys some questions that function as a trigger for the artistic process. How and why do we select some items out of the archive and not others? How is the body experience of removing items from the archive, gathering them somewhere else? What can we make with these items? To the first question of how and why we select some items from Victor Nubla's personal archive, which is all at his old apartment in Gracia, in the neighborhood in Barcelona. So it's not a really organized archive, it's just going at his place and looking around his things. We set a first limitation. Since Nubla was a musician, let us check out his music collection, the most obvious limitation. And also, since his development as an artist flourished during the 80s, let us set our focus in his cassette collection, his tape collections. The question is, which tapes should we use? Because he has many tapes, and also there is this question on how to handle this material, if we have to make copies so it doesn't get damaged. All these questions about archiving, some of you have pointed out already. So we thought about chance operations, and we collected 31 tapes that will be played by 15 Walkman in a device, never deciding which one to play, never knowing its content. The soundscape that results from these decisions is always changing and provoking new and unexpected musical discourses, and thus new and unexpected experiences in our bodies. To the question of what happens in our bodies when we wander around in the little apartment of Gracia, looking at things that Nubla kept there, listening to the records and tapes stacked in shelves, watching videos of concerts in VHS, reading some of the books in his library, playing with his collection of one puzzle pieces, talking about heritage, memory, music, and death. We answer with some practices derived from these experiences. The practice of stealing, because at some point we feel like thieves, we translate it into stealing kinetic impulses and appropriate them. We also work on the experience of retiring. We retire objects, leaving empty spaces, gaps in the order of the archive. These objects are brought to a new context and set in many other configurations. We also retire our gaze and even our body as a kinetic task that produces new relations with space. Retiring becomes the trigger of choreographic research, together with the notion of evanescence and recording.